iCarly was a really fun TV show I used to watch in middle school. In fact, it was one of the first TV shows I ever watched when I moved to the US. Eventually, I stopped watching this show because I guess my priorities changed and I started watching other shows on Disney and Cartoon Network. But I was really excited to find out that they announced that a reboot would be happening with majority of the original cast returning. And what surprised me more was the fact that the announcement happened in December of 2020 and that the show premiered in summer of 2021, just 6 months later. So after a 9-year hiatus, did the show live up to its mark? Well, no, it was not. In fact, it wasn't even memorable. So what made it go wrong? Let's start from the top. The show was announced to have all the major cast returning except for one person, who was Jeanette McCurdy, the person who originally played Sam. I consider iCarly to have 4 main characters, and only 3 of the 4 original returning was not a good start, but it was dismissible. I know a lot of people have qualms and outright wrote the show off at this point, but I was still intrigued and excited. For me, this was the first childhood show of mine which was being rebooted and having much of the original still returning. But there were more issues as the episodes kept releasing, so let's go a little bit more in depth. My first issue is the fact that they made Carly an idiot. I remember Carly being one of the smarter characters from the other show, someone who was a voice of reason and usually made smart judgments. That being said, Carly did take risks and end up in bad situations, but overall she felt very knowledgeable, dependable, and reliable. Yet in the reboot, at times, Carly feels like an airhead. There's somehow a cartoonish vibe to her, and it seems that over the 9 years, her maturity has stayed the same, and in some cases, gone down a level. My favorite part of the episodes were when Carly was reflecting on her personal life and having a moment of growth and realization, yet those came so sparse and few. It's really sad to know that her character turned out this way, especially when they said that when the show was being produced that because of the 9-year gap, that the characters are going to be more adult versions of themselves and focus on more adult situations, since the original people who watched the show are now about 9 years older. And so with that, I was hoping that the characters would have matured a little bit, or at least felt like how they would be realistic to the people around us. But that was clearly not the case, and it was very disappointing. Another thing is that the duo of Carly and Sam worked well in the original show because they had distinct personalities and attitudes that intertwined with each other. In fact, each of the 4 characters had different traits that would lend itself best to situations in times of trouble. Yet in this show, it feels that the 2 new lead characters are the same, Carly and Harper. Yes, Harper's also an idiot, but at least she's better written and consistent, though it might be because we went in without any expectations. But going back to the point, both the characters have overlapping personalities and attitudes that make them less unique to watch. It's especially jarring when you're coming in with the expectation that since the original 2 friends were different, that the new pairing would also be different. But it's not, and overall, I just don't like Carly as a character anymore. And so when you're presented with 2 of them, it gets more annoying for me. I was expecting Harper to be more unique, but I'm thoroughly disappointed. There's a lot that could have been done with Harper's character, but it just feels lazy writing at this point. We could have had a character that helps Carly grow or helps the people around them grow, but instead we just have another cartoonish character that doesn't help the plotline at all. The next point we go on to is the fact that Freddy is pretty useless in the reboot. Now, Freddy also had some personality changes. From what I recall, he's not so uptight anymore or spreading his tech-savvy knowledge, though it might be because the reboot never had many situations where he had to begin with. That being said, before the show was released, the official synopsis/tease said that Freddy is a failed entrepreneur with 2 divorces living with his mom. Yet none of it truly comes into play for his character development or to drive the show forward. It's truly a waste that they gave an interesting backstory to Freddy in the 9 years since we didn't see him, and only to disregard it to make him live like life is normal, rather than it being referenced the entire season or having some sort of an influence or impact to everyday things that Freddy was doing. Freddy is just there. His current personality doesn't really match with the life experiences he's going through. For reference, Sam has a mean, tough personality, and that comes through her tough childhood with her mom always being in prison or in trouble. Her life experiences influenced her personality. With all that trauma that Freddy has gone through, he's really just vibing like Carly. It's a waste, really. And just like Freddy's child Millicent is also pretty useless. She adds nothing to the show, honestly, apart from 1 or 2 scenes where she's needed to reassure the audience that she's still part of the show and daughter of Freddy. Before the show was released, it was teased that she was going to have an arc where she is starting her own web series and sees Carly as a competitor. At first, I wasn't sure about the idea, but I was down to see what would happen. And honestly, it was kind of intriguing to me to see a dynamic duo between Carly and Millicent, and them having a small rivalry, and seeing if Freddy was going to favor Millicent or Carly. But that was only seen in the first episode, and for the remainder of it, We completely abandoned the idea, the want for fame, and the rivalry that was supposed to be between her and Carly. If she was taken out of the show entirely, it would have worked just as well with a few minor rewrites. Heck, it might have even been better to have one less character to focus on. Honestly, out of all the characters in the show, Millicent feels the most confusing as you don't know what's her goal or attitude. Maybe that was the intention, but it's the first time I didn't know where a character was going in a TV show. The original iCarly was called iCarly because of the web series within the TV show called iCarly. In fact, it was so important that it drove the plot forward in many episodes and felt like a show within a show. It was a major part of the show, and I could be wrong, but I think the web series was in every episode of the original, if not at least 95%. Yet in the reboot, they've completely eliminated the web series or any counterparts to it. It's only referenced again in the first episode, and then we only see a few glimpses in a few episodes for the rest of the season. Now, this could be a purposeful choice from the writer's point of view, and I honestly see this point swinging either side of the pendulum. Some people will agree it's good that they got rid of the show, while some people will miss it like me. Yet I can't help but feel disappointed that they got rid of it entirely almost. I was expecting at least some more inclusion than what was given. That being said, we move on to our last point, which is the broken dynamic. This is something that I noticed which I want to talk about. Some may consider it a flaw while some may gloss over it, which is fine. The original had a grouping of the 3 kids and then Spencer. Spencer worked independently in the original and sometimes was required in the dynamic that was generally how it worked. In the reboot, it got wonky. Instead of keeping the 3 young adults together, they make Freddy really only interact with Carly or Spencer. We never really see Carly, Harper, and Freddy hash it out together. Not only that, Carly is also alone sometimes, and Freddy is also sometimes alone. It's an awkward feeling when the original had Freddy and Carly together a lot, and now that they've broken that up and replaced it with something that doesn't work as well. Spencer and Harper had some interaction in grouping together, but it was maybe 2 episodes max, and Millicent is just there. I honestly can't recall with whom she spends time with. Overall, it's just an awkward and flawed execution. Hopefully it's addressed later and we start seeing consistent friend groups and character interaction. Overall, there are many things wrong with this show, and I can't help but critique it. There are things which it did right though, such as recreating the original apartment while giving it a new flair, or bringing back a lot of the side characters for quick cameos. But that's all they were. One quick episode with one quick cameo. With season 2 on the horizon, probably coming out in spring or summer, am I expecting drastic changes? No. Will I be pleasantly surprised if there were? Yes. Am I still going to watch the show even if it doesn't fix things? Probably. At the end of the day, the show has nostalgia for me and I love it. I don't hate the show, I just wish it was better because I see the potential. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and I'll see you guys till next time.